Opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers. Today we got a treat for you guys. Thursday episode, which means, it's a mixed bag. We kind of do whatever we want. It's like the free space in the NFLSC bingo. And today we decided, since we are approaching the NFL trade deadline, since that seems to be the soup du jour of what everyone wants to talk about on the timeline.
Soup du jour.
Let's talk about it here on this podcast. We're going to bring to the table 5 potential trades for players, for teams, compensation, context, why it would work. We're each going to give you 5. I'm going to give you 5. Connor's going to give you 5. And we're just going to talk about it. We're going to have you guys yell at us at the end of the podcast about how stupid we are about this team would never trade that player for that price and whatever. But it's going to be a good time, Connor. I'm excited about it.
Me too. As excited as you could be. It's funny. The NFL makes trades very difficult, whether it's the financial aspect, whether it's the fact that a lot of teams don't seem very interested in making trades. We are going to make it very interesting on today's show because there are a lot of contenders that have not got off to the start that they hoped for that I think, and I know you agree, need to make moves. Even if they're not game-changing, send all your picks moves, they need to make a move. And then there's a couple surprise teams lingering around that might want to fill a gap here or there. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this one today.
Yeah, for as much as there is like the uncertainty of teams that we thought that were going to be great that aren't so great, bad teams being a little bit better than we thought, it definitely makes this trade market and this trade deadline very interesting because I think a lot of these teams are more desperate than I thought they were going to be, the potential contenders. And unfortunately for them, there are a lot of teams that we thought were just going to be absolutely terrible that aren't the worst team in the world. They're a lot better than we thought they were going to be going into the season. So are they going to be fire selling their assets? What's going to happen? We're all obviously going to dig into it. Before we do get straight into it, you talked about how the NFL makes trading a little bit more difficult. And I think it is worth mentioning just how much goes into player acquisition, right? Like all of the hours of scouting, all of the research done to it's not just fantasy football where you're acquiring a guy on a depth chart. These are people who you're shaking their hand when the contract is signed, right? You're getting to know their family. You get to know their lives. And so there's a reason why trades don't happen as much as maybe we think that they should, as much as it happens in a Madden league or whatever it is. You got to remember that part of it too. These regimes a lot of times invest a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of work into getting these players on the roster. So that's probably why they don't want to get rid of them as easily as some of us on the other side of things like to admit.
That's right. I think it's a league where players have become more vocal where they will go and where they won't go. And I think I'll never forget talking to somebody that already retired, but and this player had a long career, and he was telling me, he goes, I didn't realize, he's like, till my 4th or 5th destination that I could just say no. He's like, and I said no to a trade, and it actually defeated the trade with nothing else happening. Me simply saying I'm not going to play there, and they were like, okay, trade's done. So that's part of it. But it is funny to me, and the NFL trade deadline has gotten better in recent years, but obviously you're a hockey fan. In baseball, the MLB and NHL trade deadlines are a bonanza.
Yeah, they truly are.
Rosters look entirely different because the teams that are in are really, really in. And then you have the NFL where I think I'm fascinated to see who's going to be the first GM that really figures, and there's a couple that have had success, but really figures out some kind of loophole in the trade deadline or maximizes the trade deadline. And I think it'll really only pick up as more years go by.
Yeah, and a lot of those, the other sports, there's fewer players impacting the game on a game-to-game basis, right?
That's a good point.
You look at the NBA, and obviously the NBA is pretty wild when you go through the trade deadline because one move, like you said, changes an entire team, and it doesn't often happen in the NFL, right? It's the same in every sport where teams genuinely aren't looking to move on from their good players. But when they do in the NHL, when they do in the MLB, when they do in the NBA, it's a massive shift in how good these teams are. Whereas in the NFL, it's more of is this the, I don't call it a little addition, but is this the addition that puts this team over the top? It's just kind of a little next step thing. It's not like a total identity changing thing. But I do think there's a handful of guys, we've already talked a little bit about it in the pre-show, that could make all the difference in the world. So I'll start with you. What trade do you want to bring to the table? What's a hypothetical that you would like to see for one reason or another? And tell us how plausible it is.
So I'll start with a team that has big expectations for this year, and the year has not gone the way they'd hoped so far, but it can be salvaged, and that's the Green Bay Packers. And what I've seen with the Packers outside of the question marks people have at the wide receiver position is that it starts up front, their problems. And it's not just the Jets that whoop them up front. Teams have had success against their offensive line, the right side of their offensive line. And Elton Jenkins is a great player in this league. He should be an all-pro guard that is being forced to play tackle right now. Yeah. They need to find a way to get him back at guard. And the solution I come up with, Trevor, is the Packers trading a 4th-round pick for Isaiah Wynn and playing Wynn at right tackle, kicking Jenkins back into guard. And now you have a right side of the offensive line that does not look good. It looks flat-out bad and can actually be a big-time strength going forward. And I believe Wynn was even benched for a little bit of New England's last game.
Yeah.
Wynn's had his problems in New England this year, and Wynn's a good player. He's had his health problems, though, obviously performance problems last weekend. So I think that's a player, despite his number, which I think he's making about $10 million this year. You have to figure out that part of the deal. But I think the Packers have a code red on their offensive line, and I think there's a solution out there. And I think this kind of move is a double whammy, with Jenkins kicking back in, and would really help Aaron Rodgers and really help their run game.
Yeah, their guard play has been
Royce Newman has been going through it, man.
Yeah,
he's been going through it. They benched him, and whoever came in for him went through it against Quinnen Williams and Sheldon Rankins, and it's been like that all year. So
John Runyon's not grading out that well either, their left guard.
Yeah,
Below
who got fined by his dad this weekend. Did you see that?
No, did that happen?
John Runyon's dad is the guy that sends the fine letters.
Oh yeah.
And he had to send his son a fine. Their interior has gone through it. If you run any form of a stunt against Green Bay's offensive line, you're going to have a party.
Right. I mean, I have 2 trades that kind of go off of that one.
Go right to them.
I guess I'll do the Isaiah Wynn one because you brought up Wynn going to the Packers. I like that idea because I do agree with you. I think that Elton Jenkins needs to be an all-pro guard, man. I think you need to let him be a guard. Him at tackle, even though he's a really good just offensive lineman overall, I feel like they're not maximizing his versatility by just simply keeping him at tackle. I think there's a better way to get a best 5 out there, and I think that trading for Isaiah Wynn could definitely be in the cards for that. Another team that really needs help along the offensive line, maybe even worse than the Green Bay Packers, is the Los Angeles Rams. Rams have been absolutely terrible since game 1, where they gave up all those pressures to the Buffalo Bills. Joe Noteboom now out for the season, and I never want to act like a guy getting hurt is like a good thing, but Joe Noteboom was giving up so many pressures. He was top 10 in the NFL when it came to pressures allowed. And so him going down is already bad because he was the experienced guy that you were hoping to get in there and have that continuity. And it already wasn't working when he was on the field. Go get Isaiah Wynn. You know, a lot of people talk about the Los Angeles Rams, trading for Christian McCaffrey or going to get an offensive weapon or what they're going to do at running back. Man, go get an offensive lineman. If Isaiah Wynn's available, I think that's definitely an area that they need to attack there, not only because of the injury, but also like long-term as well. Hopefully getting Isaiah Wynn in a starting spot because it's him and Havenstein. How old is Rob Havenstein? I didn't even look this up before.
What, 30?
What is he? He is, I'm looking at his contract now, 3-year, $34 million contract.
He's 30.
He is 30 right now, and he's got 3 more years on the deal. Okay, so he's definitely around for a little while at right tackle. But Joe Noteboom was the left tackle anyways. That's Isaiah Wynn's spot. That's where you would want him. You mentioned it. He carries about a $10 million cap hit. Rams have $4.7 million in cap space right now, so it would take a little bit for him to fit under the cap. But Connor, look, the cap's a myth. We're not going to sit here and let something silly like cap space tell us that we can't make a team. Right. This is a Rams we're talking.
And it's not all 10 million because the season's already begun.
Right. This is a good point too. So when that's a good lesson as we're going to move forward with this is what you see on Over the Cap when you go on Over the Cap and you're looking at a lot of these contracts. It's not like the team takes on all this. A lot of this stuff is prorated anyways. So you're going to see, and one of the contracts I'm going to talk about has to do with that. But I'd love to see Isaiah Wynn on the Los Angeles Rams. That is the area, if you ask me, that is holding them back the most. Good offensive lineman, and Wynn's been up and down. So that word good, I know some people might fight back on that, but this is a young, talented offensive lineman who I think could use a change of scenery. Would love for this to happen if possible, because I do think that Wynn has some good ball in him. He's just 27, man. He's just a 27-year-old offensive lineman. When, if ever, do mid-20-year-old offensive linemen with potential hit the market? Almost never. So I'd love for the Rams to jump on it. Packers would be a good situation as well because it would allow them to kick Jenkins inside. But those are two destinations that I'd love to see for Isaiah Wynn.
Man, it makes a lot of sense. The Rams, if they want to salvage this season, they have to do something because they have so many problems up front. So I like the fit a lot. All right, I'll stick with the theme of, this team is not underachieving just because they lost to the Bills. The Chiefs are really good. The Chiefs are well-deserving of being one of the Super Bowl favorites. This is more of a buy low, but it's something that I think the Chiefs could use. And I'm going to have them trade a 5th-round pick for Denzel Mims on the Jets. And the way I would structure this trade, because Joe Douglas doesn't trade guys that he took, on day 2 of the draft for day 3 picks. I think there might be some conditional terms here where if Mims goes off with the Chiefs, it can become a 4. But let's call it a 5th-round pick right now. I just think they can use a field stretcher. And a lot of people will look at this and go, well, what about Valdez-Scantling? Sure. But once again, this is buying low on a guy that was drafted in the 2nd round, that has deep speed, that has contested catchability, that he just can't get on the field for the Jets. He's not active, ever. He hasn't been active all year because the issue is he would play Corey Davis's role. And the reality is Corey Davis has been a better player since Denzel Mims got into the league. And then Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore are going to play over him. Of course, they are. And Braxton Berrios is an all-pro return man, so he's going to be active as well. And they like Jeff Smith on special teams. So I think Mims would be available. And I think the Chiefs, this is the kind of move you make at wide receiver if there's not that impact move out there. And doing the digging I'm doing, I don't think DJ Moore is available for, I'm not expecting, just from what I'm reading, I'm not hitting up Panthers contacts. Like, it doesn't seem like DJ Moore is on the market. So if there's no big-time wide receiver to add out there, the Odell Beckham thing, sure, it seems like he'll have a lot of suitors, won't be ready till the end of November anyway, it sounds like. Why not buy low on Mims if you're the Chiefs, and maybe Mahomes can get more out of him. And he's a pretty good blocker, too, which is something I think they would value. If you have him and Juju out there blocking, could really help your outside run game as well.
I think that's a decent shout out. A lot of these moves that might be made around the trade deadline, they're not going to be like the biggest moves in the world, but I feel as though the Chiefs are definitely one of those teams where it's like, hey, if the price is low, like if the risk is low on it, go acquire some talent, right?
Beach does that a lot, yeah.
Mims was a 2nd-round pick, even though he certainly hasn't lived up to that billing so far in his NFL career. Shoot, you Patrick Mahomes, anything can happen, right? So I don't know.
He had a good summer.
It's just one of those things where clearly it's not going to work in New York. Is his contract up this year? Right?
No, so that's the nice thing if you're the Chiefs in this deal. You're acquiring a player that maybe can help you this year, but you have him on the books for $1.7 million next year. So if you get into camp and he struggles, you cut him, right? And you're out of that money. Right. But maybe he turns it around with you because he had a good summer with the Jets. He just can't get on the field. And it's for the Chiefs. This is a little bit, we'll buy low, and maybe this guy can be our wide receiver 3 or 4 next year for really no money at all.
Sure. Yeah, you're almost just like acquiring talent and seeing what happens. It's not bad when you're a good team. It's not a bad.
Exactly.
I don't think you want to do that all the time because it's not like you want to never be picking on day 3 of the draft. For as much as they are throwaway picks, those are often a lot of your core special teams guys. Those are the guys that you pick for a specific reason. to be gone on that third phase. So I think that part is important. It's not like you want to just throw away day 3 picks all willy-nilly. But in this instance for the Chiefs, I think, don't they have an extra one?
So I was going to say, the reason I did this for them is the 5th rounder. They have 2 4s, a 5th, 2 6s, and a 7. So the Chiefs are going to move day 3 capital at the deadline. They have plenty of it.
Yeah, they got 3 6th. They can do this. They can make this happen. You got the extra capital.
Extra 4.
Extra 4, 2 extra 6th. Yeah, I like it. I like the idea. I'll stick with the Chiefs. I'll go a little bit higher. I'll bring up the name that everybody wants to talk about at the trade deadline. I'll talk about Christian McCaffrey. I think that if there is a place where Christian McCaffrey should go, I think it's the Chiefs. I really do. I think that that's their destination. I know a lot of Buffalo Bills fans have talked about Christian McCaffrey going to Buffalo. And look, in a vacuum, if you want to put Christian McCaffrey on the Buffalo Bills, fine. He is obviously a better offensive weapon and a better running back than what the Bills have on the roster currently. But I don't want to take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. I know some people are going to push back on it and say, like, oh, you don't want him getting hit this much. You don't want him running. Look how good he is. You're trying to win a Super Bowl. I know you're not trying to run the guy into the ground, but this guy right now is front runner for MVP, if you ask me. I don't want to take the ball out of the MVP's hands. If you can guarantee me that the game plan is going to stay exactly the same and you're just instead putting Christian McCaffrey in for every running back opportunity, whether it's a catch out of the backfield or a rush, sure, I could be okay with that. But it's so tempting with a talent like Christian McCaffrey back there to start taking the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. And I hate that. I don't like it. I do not like it. So that's why I don't like him going to the Buffalo Bills. And some people might go, whoa. Okay, you want the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands? No, not necessarily. But I think that Andy Reid is so creative in how he tries to use his running backs. They're going to use their running backs anyways. Yep. And so that's where it's like, okay, if you sub in Christian McCaffrey for the guys that they currently have,
Jerick McKinnon, he plays a lot.
Right. You got Jerick McKinnon, you got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you have Isaiah Pacheco, right? If you're just basically subbing in Christian McCaffrey for all those opportunities, now we're cooking. Now we're talking about something that might be worth it. The tricky part about McCaffrey is his contract, right? That's what everybody is talking about. $8 million on the cap. If you go to over the cap, you can see that he's $8 million on the cap this year, but then it goes up to $19 million next year, $19 million the year after that, $15 million the year after that. The Panthers have to be trying to get out of this contract. And what Peter Schrager reported early last Sunday was that the Panthers were looking for multiple first-round picks for Christian McCaffrey.
Not happening.
A reason why that would be the case isn't just because of, you're setting the value high for a good player. It's because the Panthers are still on the hook for that dead money if they trade it. So I believe that if I'm reading the breakdowns of the contract correctly, whoever trades for Christian McCaffrey is only taking on about $1 million in cap space because the contract is prorated. Carolina is going to save about $1 million on the cap this year, but they still have the $18 million dead cap hit next year before he is completely off of their books.
That's heavy.
So in order to make up for all of that dead cap on the Panthers books next year, that's why they would want more than just the capital that you would expect to trade for a player who has a tough contract. So I think in order for them to acquire Christian McCaffrey, it would probably cost 2 day 2 selections, right? It would probably be like a second-round pick this year, a third-round pick next year to get it done. I don't know where the conversations are. I have no idea what the starting point is for it. Obviously, 2 first-round picks is egregious, and Carolina will never get that. But if they don't, what are they going to do with McCaffrey?
That's right. That's the perfect point.
The team is bad. They're not going to be good for a while.
Yep.
Whether it's the $19 million that his contract would be next year to be on the team, or the $18 million with the extra draft picks that you get to help kickstart your rebuild, which one do you want? And I think that Carolina would probably rather have the draft picks. So
I would take the picks.
That's the way that I read everything right now with the McCaffrey deal.
Here's my counter take to that. Not really counter, because I think you agree. if you're worried about paying the money while the player is not playing for you, the draft picks you're getting should offset that money, where one of those two picks should be a starting player for you at a pretty key spot.
Right.
So
right.
Kind of
on a rookie contract.
That's what I mean.
I was talking about this with Mike Renner earlier today, actually. We were talking about the running back class for this upcoming draft, and Mike doesn't have Bijan Robinson in the top 20 of his big board right now. And he doesn't because of positional value. He loves Bijan. I think Bijan's right there at 21, so I was trolling him a bit about it. And then I said to him, I was like, well, hold on. Do you have any other running backs in your top 50? And I listed them off. Blake Corum, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sean Tucker, Zach Evans. So many of these different running backs. Class. And Mike kind of smiled and he said no. And the reason why I say no isn't because they're bad. It's because of what you just did right there. You rattled off all of these really good running backs that could be available in the late second, early third, maybe even early fourth round. So if you're Carolina, if you pick yourself up an extra second round pick, an extra fourth round pick this year, and an extra third round pick next year, whatever it is, I don't know what the price is going to be. You can move on from McCaffrey and already have a running back that you love who might be versatile as well on a rookie deal. So I think that goes into it. All that to say, I think the Chiefs are the best spot for him. His usage with the Los Angeles Rams, I think, would also be very good because that's what Sean McVay does, and they need playmakers out of the backfield. But if we're being honest, the spot that I love the most for McCaffrey is the Chiefs. Go all in on the Chiefs. I already thought that the Los Angeles Rams were going to take a step back this year. I didn't think the Los Angeles Rams were a team that was going to win the Super Bowl last year. So I am skeptical about them going out, trading a bunch of assets for a running back that I don't think is going to make a big difference for them. I do think that McCaffrey could make a big difference for the Chiefs. So ultimately, that was my favorite spot for what is by far the hottest topic name in the trade deadline circles.
I like it a lot. Now, what I do want to hit on is I am not of the, and I don't think a lot of people will agree with this, I am not of the belief that it should be an assumption you can replace a running back, because recent history just tells us the miss rate is just, it's a lot higher than people want to admit. Like, go back to 2020, right?
That draft is...
Clyde Edwards-Helaire has not lived up to his draft billing. No. DeAndre Swift, good player, always hurt. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Taylor, excellent. Cam Akers, total bust right now. J.K. Dobbins, always hurt. A.J. Dillon does not look good this year, as good as he looked last year. Keyshawn Vaughn, total bust. Zach Moss, total bust. Darrington Evans, bust. And I can keep going down the list. Like, the hit rate on running backs is a lot smaller than the general NFL media likes to pretend.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of those things that, like, I'm trying to be like a narrative buster. Like, I will fall in love with 7 running backs in next year's draft.
Oh, of course. I already am.
Already have.
Right.
But a lot of them will be misses. So I think we've gotten to the point where we do fully take the position entirely for granted.
Yeah. I will also say this, too. One more thing about McCaffrey is that starting next year, none of his contract is guaranteed. So obviously it's structured the way that it currently is for him to be on the cap for 19 and then 15 mil in those last 3 years, but there's no guarantees left in that deal. So you can either cut him and save money, or you can potentially restructure the deal, right? So if you wanted to keep him and you wanted it to be structured a little bit differently, I think that you have the freedom to do that and move some guaranteed monies around and make it a little bit easier on a year-to-year basis if you think that he's going to be around for a long time. So all that flexibility is there with McCaffrey, but that's ultimately where I landed with him.
I think it just illuminates your point further that they should get something for him while they can. I think so too.
I think so.
All right. The next one, this one's for you, Trevor. I don't know if you're going to celebrate this with a birthday hat and confetti, but we got to do something for the Bucs. And I think priority number 1 for the Bucs should be getting O-line help. I don't know how much O-line help is really going to exist on the market. It just really doesn't.
I tried to find it.
I couldn't.
You're right. I couldn't. I was even looking at Denver's roster. I was like, Quinn Miners? I mean, like, would they?
Yeah.
And there's like, no, they wouldn't do it. No, there's no way they would do it. So, tough.
So the Bucs, this is a tough one because I don't love his contract. It's not the worst in terms of guaranteed money, but I think the Bucs are the all-in team because of Brady. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
I have them trading a 6th-round pick for Robert Quinn, and Robert Quinn has not.
Cheap.
Yeah, because Robert Quinn is paid. And Robert Quinn has not had the year, although in a situation that is just a disaster right now in Chicago for the most part. He has 1 sack this year in 6 games, coming off a season where he had 18.5 sacks last year. So I still think Robert Quinn is a really good player. And I think the Bucs could use some more pass rush help. I don't think they're code red, and you tell me. I think the Bucs could use some pass rush help. Yes, offensive line is the priority. I just didn't think it existed. So this for me is kind of a signal of the Bucs are going to make some kind of a win now move, because I don't know how much longer Tom Brady is playing. And if you're the Bucs, why not do everything possible to try to win a Super Bowl and figure out all the financial or lack of draft asset problems after Tom Brady leaves and rides off into the sunset? And this was kind of one where I said, if anybody's going to take on Robert Quinn, because he could still play in my eyes, I think the Bucs would be one of the teams.
I don't hate your thought process of draft picks don't exact that. I mean, I'm way overstating this, but like draft picks don't exactly matter while you have Tom Brady, right? That's why Kyle Trask was such a terrible draft pick. I'm always going to go back to that.
Second round, right?
Back in the second round.
That's wild.
Yep.
Wild.
Yep. In a Tom Brady window. Yep. Unbelievable. But I don't think they don't have the cap space to be able to take on Robert Quinn.
The Bears need to help out here.
For as much as
let me make that very clear.
For as much as I think that if you're talking about that, then you're probably going to have to give them a higher draft pick, right? To be able to take on some of that money, because Tampa definitely would not be able to take on all of it. They could be a lot better on the defensive line. Man, Quinn's just been so disappointing this year.
Yeah.
Unless you really thought that Quinn is going to flip the switch in Tampa. Shaq Barrett's been fine. Joe Tryon-Shoyink is kind of coming along. I kind of think they missed that veteran presence with Jason Pierre-Paul that they had last year, but Pierre-Paul wasn't good either, so I'm kind of torn on it. I like the thought of adding to the defensive line, but I don't really trust Robert Quinn. And I do know that the Bucs were interested in Robert Quinn the last time he hit the free agency market.
When the Bears gave him a ton of money?
Yeah, and I remember the Bucs they were not about it because of his back. They were like, no, his back's fried. And they ends up going to Chicago and he gets like 18.5 sacks in 1 year.
That season was, nobody saw that coming.
Right. So it's a little bit funny. It was like, maybe his back's doing all right. But he does, it's unless it is a very late pick and they're helping out the money, it's hard to see that one being the move for him. But I have another one for the Bucs. It's not as star-studded, but I think it would be a decent addition for them. I have them going after Albert Okwuegbunam, the tight end from Denver, who was a healthy scratch last week when Greg Dulcich came back. And look, Okwuegbunam has not been having the best year. I think a lot of people thought when Noah Fant was out the door, okay, this is Okwuegbunam's time to shine. Albert O, he's the guy in the tight end room. This is who they're going to go to. So far this season, Connor, only a 10.2% threat percentage, which is wide receiver or tight end usage. So how many times you're getting targeted when you are running a route. 7 catches, 50 yards, 11 targets on the whole year. And that's nothing near what people expected from him once Noah Fant went out the door. And look, this guy's still got 2 years left on his rookie deal. Okay. Bucs tight end room is very thin right now. It's Cade Otton. It's Cam Brate, who is hurt. I don't even know how available Cam Brate is going to be. And then Kyle Rudolph is there. Keith is more of a special teams guy, a versatile dude. He's not exactly integral in the passing offense. But Okwuegbunam's a good athlete. He's a big body. There's a lot of potential there. Like I said, he's been better as a run blocker this year. He's got a run blocking grade in the high 70s, and so you'd like to see that as well. He's got those 2 years left on the rookie deal. I tried to find a splash ad for the Bucs. I really did, but
it's hard.
Outside of Isaiah Wynn, there's just not really an O-lineman that's available that you can get jazzed about. And I looked it up, and Isaiah Wynn's bounced from the left tackle to right tackle a little bit in his career. And I was like, didn't he play guard a little bit? There was one game that he played guard. It was in 2020, week 6. He played left guard, and it's like the worst graded game of his career. And I was like,
that's why.
I'm like, damn it, I can't even make this work. So I tried to entertain myself of, you trade for Isaiah Wynn, you kick him inside, but that's not going to work either. So if it's not going to be the offensive line, I didn't love. I hear what you're saying about Robert Quinn. I just don't think they're going to pull the trigger with it. Pick up the phone for Alberto. Pick up the phone for Alberto. Maybe he can make a difference in the passing game. He can get you a little bit more vertical. He can be a little bit more explosive from the tight end spot. Take a chance on it. That's my thoughts.
Man, I'll tell you what. We've done a lot of shows that have, in my eyes, been some of the most creative pieces of content I've been a part of in this space. This is one of the harder shows to prepare for, man. Like, you have to do you're not research, but confirmation of the money working.
Right.
The draft assets making sense. The draft assets existing.
Yep.
The player actually helping the team and not just being a body that, as this podcast is coming through your ears, you do not give a you-know-what about. So, with that being said, thanks to you, because we do talk outside of this show.
No, we don't.
I said I need to find an interior D-line for the Jets.
Oh, yeah,
and some people listening to that might be like, why? The Jets' defensive line is killing it. Correct, except the fact they have played Solomon Thomas 122 snaps this year and Nathan Shepard 116 snaps this year.
My boy Nathan Shepard.
Your boy.
Be careful.
Yours and only yours.
Be careful. I had Nathan Shepard as a top 20 player in the year he came out.
It's okay. You didn't have to admit it.
We're transparent on this podcast. We're transparent on this podcast.
I respect the hell out of that. To put those snap counts in perspective, Thomas with 122, Shepard with 116. Quinn Williams has played 242. That's a lot of snaps for these two guys. As good as the Jets D-line has been, those guys are not good and have not been good. And the more they are on the field, which it's apparent they will need to be because this team rotates a lot, that's a problem. So when I said this to you, you said, what about Matt Ioannidis? And I was like, that's perfect. When you look at, he's on the Panthers, everyone should be available there, especially guys on one-year contracts there.
Yeah.
Ioannidis is still a good player. He is still, and it's a one-year deal, so this doesn't matter as much. He's 28, so he's not some washed veteran. He's still a really good player. He's been very good against the run this year. He is graded out extremely highly. I think he's around a 75 point something against the run this year on a team that him and Derek Brown, their run defense has improved a lot. For all their problems, that was always a big one in Carolina. That's finally started to at least trend the right way. Ioannidis is still a good player. Now, the tricky thing why I only have the Jets sending them a sixth for him, besides the fact it's a one-year rental, he has void money tacked on for a couple years that's very low, but still a couple million here, a couple million there. It would be very interesting how that carries over if it does for the Jets. So this is the Panthers getting something for a player that you're assuming is not part of their future, even if he's performed at a high level for there. No offense, Carolina fans. I don't know why he would go back there after this year. This is a guy that's approaching 30 that probably wants to win and hasn't won a lot in his NFL career despite playing at a really high level. So this is quietly a need for the Jets that are 4-2. They want to keep winning. And I don't think they should desire to keep playing Solomon Thomas and Nathan Shepard in key roles on the interior D-line.
Do you trade void years? Those a thing?
I have tried so hard to figure out if they carry over, and even on over the cap, I cannot tell if they stick with the team. It just changes the color of the boxes when you click trade preview. That's all it did for me. It didn't tell me anything. It just changed the color of the boxes. So I'm not sure, but if they do,
I can text it. I can text my cat person.
You're gonna look this up while I keep talking. Bingo space.
Yeah, there it is.
Secured.
There it is. Yeah.
Bingo space secured. So if the void years get sent to the Jets, this is only a 6th round pick at best, because that's the Jets paying a couple mil for the next couple years that there's no reason for that. They'd be paying 3.8 mil of the contract after this year. If the void years don't get carried over, I would send at least a 5th for Ioannidis for the Jets, because maybe you get him in the building. He likes being part of a team that they think they're really going in the right direction. You're playing with Quinn Williams and Sheldon Rankins and Carl Lawson and John Franklin Myers. You have all these good things going around you finally. Maybe you can tack on a year extension or something with him and at a reasonable rate where that 5th round pick is worth it to you. So that was the biggest thing I struggled with this contract and why the value can drastically change depending on those void years.
Matt Ioannidis, I like the move.
Good player. Real good player.
I reached
good player
out.
that nobody seems to care.
I reached out. We'll see if they respond.
Brad?
I'll give him a couple minutes. Yeah, it is Brad.
And Brad's brilliant. So
yeah, Brad
knows. Help.
Brad knows a ton about the cap, and he obviously does a lot of work with the good fine people at Over the Cap as well. So if any of my contacts know, it's probably going to be him. So I text him. We'll see if he responds promptly before this podcast is over, but we'll give him a couple more minutes here as we give a shout out to our friends over at Symbol. Y'all have heard me talk about them before on this podcast, but our sponsor Symbol is revolutionizing the sports betting market by turning sports into the stock market. Symbol was PFF sponsor last year. They are back for this football season. They let you trade pro and college teams like stocks, even earn cash dividend payouts when your teams win. Shout out to New York Jets, baby. Bought them a couple weeks ago.
Love to see it. And then you threatened to sell.
We can go over it. Hold on. We can go over it. Symbol is a peer-to-peer market that took the thrill of sports betting and turned it into the stock market to give fans a new way to speculate on their favorite pro and college teams. Download the Symbol app for iOS by searching SIMBULL in the App Store. Use the promo code NFLSE to get a free team stock valued up to $150 when signing up. Whether you want to invest in up-and-coming teams like the Jags or the GOAT and Tom Brady, I promise you I didn't write this. This is actually in the script. Or the new top dog in the Buffalo Bills. Symbol always allows you to buy and sell team stocks and profit from your sports knowledge. Create a free account, enter the promo code NFLSE to get a free stock valued up to $150 and start making money in the stock market for sports. That is Symbol. And No House Advantage. Those are our other friends there. Changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy platform available today. Playing pickup contests versus other people with a shot at winning $250,000 in cash. Download the app, choose a contest, select your player props, and even earn points for correct picks when you climb the leaderboard for your shot to win that big money every single day. You can test your skills versus the house and 20 times your entry if you hit all your picks. Bet on up to 5 player props and over-unders or individual player matchups across every major sport, including the NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, even NASCAR. Sign up with promo code STOCK, STOCK, at nohouseadvantage.com or download the app on the App Store to get your first deposit match up to $25. Make sure you check out No House Advantage today and experience daily fantasy sports redefined, because it's not just about how you play, it is where you play, and you won't want to miss out on this. Brad's got a few more minutes here before the podcast is up, but I got a couple more that I want to get to.
You want to speakerphone call him?
Oh, I don't know if he... Oh, wait, he responded. Okay. So he says they already paid it. It's just cap space. But it accelerates up to 2023. So he'd have the 2022 bonus prorated amount as dead cap on 2022. And then all of 2023 through 2026 would hit on 2023.
Yes, that's correct. The cap number is in full at 3.812. I knew that, but who carries that cap number? The Panthers?
Carolina does. So if
they're going to get something for Matt Ioannidis.
So if somebody trades for him, then that means that Carolina will have almost $1 million on the cap this year still. And then next year, they will have the 2026, 2025, 2024, and 2023 void years all on the dead cap on 2023. So it just prorates to that year. So it'll be 3.8 mil.
He's a sneaky nice addition for someone then.
Yeah.
Sneaky nice.
Very.
Okay. That's good news for Carolina, although people might be surprised to hear that, because it really, in my opinion, increases the value. I don't think anybody would have given much of anything for him if they had to take on the void cap number of 3.8 million.
But, yeah, that'd be a little
But that's good. Good. All right.
Shout out Brad Spielberger for the quick response. If you guys don't follow him already, He's fantastic when it comes to trades, cap, everything, man. He is your guru for it. You talked about the Green Bay Packers to open up the show. You talked about them adding Isaiah Wynn, an idea that I liked. If they're going to add a wide receiver, I actually like the idea of them adding Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton feels like the Giants have been trying to trade him for a while. The feeling that I've tried to research and look up still feels like they're not going to re-sign him this upcoming offseason. So why not try and get something for him? Packers definitely need a player of his caliber. And when I say that, I mean speed. Get a player who can separate in man coverage. I feel like he has that ability. A lot of receivers on the Packers are not reliable in that regard right now. Slayton's been in the league a couple of years now. He has that reliability. It's going to be a new spot. It's going to take time to get the chemistry down, but you got half a season. I I think the Packers are probably going to make the playoffs. I said earlier this week on It's Just Football that I didn't think that they were going to. I really think it's a coin flip at this point because of how well the rest of the teams in the NFC are playing relative to expectation. There's a lot of bad teams that I think are still in the hunt for the playoffs. They need a go-to weapon, man. Well, maybe not a go-to weapon. They just need a weapon. They need some sort of complementary weapon in the passing game for Aaron Rodgers. I think Slayton's the guy to do it. Packers have over $6 million in cap space to make this deal happen. So I think that would be pretty easy for him. It shouldn't take much, man. Giants have been trying to deal Slayton, I feel like, for a while now. Mid-round, late-round pick, early day 3, mid-day 3, something like that. I think that you can make it happen. So Darius Slayton, putting him in that wide receiver room in Green Bay. That's another one I like.
Slayton is a player that would go on with better results somewhere else. And the Giants have had a really nice year, and it's not even about this Giants regime. It's the way Slayton... I thought he was really good as a rookie, and then you kind of look around and you go, what happened? So Slayton is a perfect buy low candidate, much like Mims in a sense where you're buying low on speed and somebody that doesn't get to play very often. So he had one big week for the Giants, but somewhere else he might get bigger.
Yeah, he's only got 8 catches this year. 8 catches, 108 yards, no touchdowns.
Dude, they were all in like one game. No joke.
Played in 5 games.
Yeah, I think it was the London game.
Yeah, it was the London game. It was against the Packers.
Yes. Oh, wow. There you go. They've seen it.
I didn't even think about that. There you go.
Yeah. Master plot.
Can't beat him.
My last trade here, a little bit of a sleeper. I was telling you before the show. I'm trading Teddy Bridgewater to the 49ers for a 5th-round pick. Teddy Bridgewater is on a 1-year deal.
Uh-huh.
I know that they started Skylar Thompson over Teddy Bridgewater, and I think a lot of that had to do with Teddy was dealing with concussion protocol things.
Sure, right.
It's everything going on in that side of the NFL right now is a little complicated in a sense that these are new protocols inserted in the middle of a season that we don't truly know. Did they want to play Skylar Thompson? Or did Teddy not get practice in and they couldn't start him, but he was the backup and he had to come in immediately? Skylar Thompson got hurt. Either way, Tua is going to be back. I think the Dolphins organization likes Skylar Thompson as a future backup. Teddy...
He played well in the preseason.
He did play really well in the preseason. Teddy's on a 1-year deal, $6.5 million, so it's going to be significantly less than that for the Niners carrying it. Trevor, I was telling you before the show, I cannot believe this. Jimmy Garoppolo's backup, who Jimmy has had his own problems at times, as we know, and came into the year as the backup, so maybe this explains why. Brock Purdy is Jimmy Garoppolo's backup. Jimmy Garoppolo is not exactly the perfect picture of sustainable health all the time on the field. You're telling me the Niners season is one snap away from Brock Purdy playing? Brock Purdy playing? So... I would go get Teddy or a player like Teddy, and you don't have to play him over Garoppolo. It's not what I'm saying. But if Jimmy really struggles or Jimmy gets hurt, you have Teddy there. Teddy's in Mike McDaniel's offense right now. Mike McDaniel was with Kyle Shanahan his entire coaching life before he went to the Dolphins.
Very good point.
You're going over there and the verbiage and everything is much easier to pick up. He'd be okay. He'd slide right in. He doesn't need time to learn the offense. I think these are sometimes the moves that could save your season. You never know. So Teddy to the Niners for a 5th.
I also don't hate it long-term, right? Because if he's on a 1-year, $6.5 million deal now, you got to think Jimmy has got to be out of there next year. But it gets tricky because you can't just move on from Jimmy with nothing else. Like at this point, for as much as you still want to say, yeah, next year is Trey Lance's, right? Next year is absolutely Trey Lance's. You don't know what you have in him still. And if this is going to be a 49ers team that's going to make the playoffs again, how is the ownership or the fan base or whatever it is going to be like, you're moving on completely from Jimmy just to give Trey Lance unprecedented ability to be the starter with no competition and nobody behind him? That's always been the risky part to me. But if you go trade for Bridgewater, which is intriguing, Bridgewater then gets to be Jimmy's backup for a year. You then don't have to, you feel like you don't have to re-sign Jimmy Garoppolo next offseason. And instead you can probably bring back Bridgewater to sit behind Trey Lance for a team-friendly contract where it's like, okay, if you're the backup most of the year, this is what we're going to pay you. You're already in our system. You already know our guys. You already know everything. We have that faith in you. But if you ever become the starter at some point, the numbers go up and there's a little bit of flexibility to it. So even though I never thought about this one, I don't hate the idea of it. I don't even hate the idea of it beyond this year. I think it could be something to set them up for next year too.
I think it's a good fit. I think Teddy, it's great. Like Teddy, when he comes in, is fine every time.
Yeah, he's a
every
good
time.
He's fine.
I mean, when you're measuring backup quarterbacks around the league, but I do think it also makes sense for the Dolphins to get. I know to his health will leave some Dolphins fans like I'd rather not trade Teddy.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, he's leaving after this year. Probably you can get an asset, and I really think they like Skylar Thompson. And are you going to carry 3 quarterbacks all year? That's not very common in this league.
Probably not.
So it's kind of decision time. Just being honest.
Probably not. They're probably not going to do that. Last one I got Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith was talked about as a potential trade guy in training camp when he was basically demanding a trade. He was looking for a contract extension. He's on the last year of his rookie deal. I can't remember what the word he used, but I think he said that he just didn't feel valued by the Chicago Bears and the contract that they were offering him. So he held out during the preseason, ends up coming back for the regular season. He's playing now, but he's playing on the last year of that deal. I don't know how happy he is and how much he's going to want to stay in Chicago after the negotiations and how they went down. Don't know anything behind the scenes about that, but just feels like there could be a rift there. Could Chicago franchise tag him? Sure. Do they want to? I don't know about that. I look at the Dallas Cowboys as a team that should be very interested in trading for Roquan Smith because they signed Leighton Vander Esch to a 1-year deal this past offseason. They also signed Anthony Barr to a 1-year deal this past offseason. Both of those guys, not a lot of faith in him. Vander Esch is playing better than Barr is right now. But Roquan Smith, man, I like the thought of him being in the middle of that defense because he is a tackling machine. This guy is a heat-seeking missile for the ball. You get a player like that in the middle of that defense, and you've got young linebackers behind him who then you could be okay with bringing up a guy like a Jabril Cox or something like that, right? You then free up Micah Parsons to be the athlete wherever you want him to be the athlete. Left side of the line, right side of the line, coming up the middle, coming off the edge, whatever it is. You free yourself. If you get Roquan Smith in the middle there, you have that stability to defend the run, to go chase tacklers to the sidelines, to play in coverage, and you allow yourself to be as versatile of a chess piece as you want there with Micah Parsons. So with those two linebackers, both of them not exactly secured long-term, and when I say that, I mean both are free agents this upcoming offseason. I think Barr's on the books for, $3 million, and Vander Esch is like 2 something. So shoot, you've got half of what Roquan's making right there. He's going to ask for more. He's going to want more. But I just feel as though with as well as the defensive line is playing, if you get yourself that superstar linebacker to play in the middle of the defense, you give yourself so much creativity in a lot of other areas. You also give yourself a young core of players to consistently build around, and him and Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons, of course. So I like it, man. I don't know what the compensation would be because I don't know where the conversations ended with Roquan at the end of the preseason when he decided to kind of come back and stick it out with the Bears. But with the Bears being as bad as they are, I think they should pick up the phone and start to listen to offers with Roquan Smith. That's what I think. And if they do, I think the Cowboys should be one of those teams on the other side of the phone.
Be a lot of fun. I think the wild card there will depend what the Cowboys think internally of Damone Clark, who they took in the 5th round. He was a day 2 player. He had I think a spinal related surgery where a lot of people didn't know if he'd never play football again or miss the year. And the latest on him is that he's actually practicing now. And he'll start out on special teams, but he's somebody that was projected as an NFL starter as a prospect. And then with that surgery and injury, it looked like we didn't know if he was going to play. So if they're confident in him, it'll be interesting to see how him and Jabril Cox are eventually, brought into that defense. But if they're not, man, I wonder if Roquan Smith can be had for a cheap price because you're going to have to pay him. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you just take the flyer on him and figure it out. And
no, they trade him and pay him.
You right? You trade him and pay him?
Yeah, I think you trade for him and pay him. That's what you do.
Yeah.
That's what I think Dallas would do. And little tricky because that's a linebacker is a, how would you say, like a lower valued position. So you don't want to do that very often. But I think where the Cowboys are and the mixture of players that they have, you insert Roquan Smith into the middle there. And I think that honestly can make a world of a difference with how you utilize Micah Parsons and how good that defense can be for years moving forward. I think he could be a crucial piece for them. I really do believe that.
It's funny. I wonder if the linebackers the linebacker market is obviously very tame. It's not a very expensive market. You're right, Trevor. The positional value of it is not very high. As this league really starts to trend back towards a lot of teams running the ball and playing defense, will the really good linebackers get valued at a higher rate? And that's something we'll have to wait and see.
We shall see. There we go. That's 5 potential trades in the NFL at the NFL deadline. 5 from me, 5 from Connor. Let us know what you guys think, or let us know what you thought of the trades that we proposed. We would love to hear from you as well. We would love to hear some potential trades that, whether it's your favorite team or whether it's a player that you've been paying attention to, a fit that you like around the league. We'd love to hear it. Hit us up on Twitter at Connor J. Rogers, at Tampa Bay Trey. If you're watching on YouTube, comment on the YouTube channel and we'll see the comments there in that way. And we'll talk about some of your suggestions, the best fits that we like on the show sometime next week.
Absolutely, man. Going to be a lot of fun. This was a fun week because trade deadline is always really creative, and we did the big stock up. And, of course, we'll have the show Sunday. What matters most? Here's 8 things that matter most. So another fun week for the pod as we welcome more teams to draft season, baby. That's what it's all about.
We're going to...
Trade deadline will give some of those away.
Next Thursday, we might have to... We might have another.
Somebody up.
We might have another Fix Your Franchise.
Bob the Builder.
Soon. That's all.
For somebody.
Gee, yeah. Now you're talking about a YouTube thumbnail that's absolutely gonna go off, baby. Just a Bob the Builder straight in the middle of both of us.
Dude, we didn't open the show.
With what? Oh, the trade guy.
I receive.
You receive. I receive.
So it's such an elite meme. Such an elite meme.
It truly is. It truly is. All right, everybody. Well, that's it for us this week. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the week and you enjoy a great weekend of football, both college football and NFL. Connor and I are going to be back Monday morning, bright and early, to talk about all of it with you. Until then, I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers. Thanks for listening to the NFL Stock Exchange. We'll see you guys beginning of next week.